Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to work with our contracts library and then talk about instant flows within Power Automate. Now, what you're going to see here in this video, we're going to walk through how do you take one of these instant Power Automates, create a customized action. Here you see send a contract to customer. And what this is going to do, this is going to allow you to put in your customer's email address to send them a personalized message. So here I can just put in their email address. So here let's just say james.harden@gmail.com. And then I can put the personal email message right here, click run the flow. And then what's going to happen if I jump over here to my Gmail, you will see this nice, beautiful email with a personalized message. It's kind of competing with the background. So, marketing would definitely clear that up. But it has a nice personalized message that works not only in your browser, the different email clients, but also on mobile, and we're ready to rock and roll. So let's walk through the process on how we can put this together using the Power Platform. Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to go right back to our contracts library. And this is where we kind of picked off. If you've been following the Power Automate series, we did a lot of automation against this contracts library. So now what we want to do, we actually want to build a solution. And in this series, I want to start talking about in the next videos, a set of videos. I'm not sure how long we go, but some of the simple solutions you can build in Power Automate. Power Automate the Power Platform in general is such a powerful tool that you should be able to pull these off pretty quickly. So what we're going to do in this video, we're actually going to just imagine this is a lease department library where all of the contracts of the leases for your clients, your end consumers, right? So someone outside of the organization. And what you want to do, once you get a reminder that this needs to be renewed, which is one of the things that we built in Power Automate. Now you probably want to come over here to Automate and say, send contract to client or whatever the name of the action. And when we do that, what we're going to show is that how we can, one, take this current document and convert it to a PDF. And we want to use a branded email because we're communicating with clients outside of our organization. So there's a certain level of branding. There's a certain legal requirement that has to be set with any communication that you have with a client or customer outside of your organization, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So here I have a document library. What I want to do, I want to go into Flow. And that's the sample of the flow that I built prior to this video. But I want to go to flows, and I want to create a new one, and I want to call it instant. And again, this is going to give us a lot more flexibility compared to the other type of flows because this is going to be an on-demand type deal. So, there's some work that needs to be done. And then once it's done, the actual contract manager or the lease manager, whatever the case may be, is going to execute an action on demand for a particular file and then need to customize that message for a particular email address and maybe a personalized message inside of it, right? So here, what we do is going to be instant, and because we're going against a library, we're going to say for this selected file, and then let's just say convert or send contract to customer. Send contract to customer, right? So that's going to be, and this name is important, right? Because when you go to the library and you go to the ellipse and then you go under automate, that's the name that's going to appear here. So whatever you name your flow, that's the name that your business users are going to see when they're interacting with the flow. So here I just go ahead and hit create. And then it's the same deal that we're kind of used to all along. We find the site of the library, then we specify which library, right? And now we have this new option called inputs, and that's what instant flows give you because, once they select it, there's a panel that pops up on the right that allow them to add additional dynamic parameters. So here, the first thing we want to do is get the client's email. And when I'm typing here, this is the name of the field that's going to show up in that right panel. So I'm going to say client's email. And then here is like a helper text, please enter in the client's email address or something like that. All right, and then the next thing we want to do is allow them to send a personalized message, right? And then you just call this personal message. And then let's say, no, this is the wrong action. Hold on. Yeah, you want to click on text, right? So you're going to say personal message, and then you say enter in a personal message, and then just say this is optional, right? Because we're sending a branded email, and ideally all they really need to do is specify the email address. What we're going to build in the flow is going to take care of everything else. It's going to take the current document, convert it to PDF, send it as an attachment, blah, 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 right? So here we just like, if they had to put a personalized email message in there because they probably just got off the phone with them, and maybe they just want to reference that phone call or conversation, whatever the case may be, this is where they would do that. And then here, let's just say client email. I'm trying to take that apostrophe out because I don't want this thing to spit up on me. All right, so once that's done, the next thing we want to do is just go ahead and send our email action. This is probably one of the most popular actions when you're dealing with Power Automate. And then for the to address, we actually just want to reference the email that they specified, so client email. And then the subject line, again, this is we're doing all the heavy lifting for them. So here we say Tesla lease agreement review or something like that. All right. And then from here for the body, let's just say the personalized message for now. All right. So now, so let's rename this to send email to client. This is really, really basic. There's no surprises here, and this is just going to work as expected. All right, so now what we want to do, we want to get a handle to this file because we actually want to convert that file and do some other things. But before we do that, let's go ahead and paste in our branded email. Now, I do have an email here. If I look under this guy and pop this up, I actually have, this is a branded email. Now, these are emails that if you deal with anybody in marketing, they understand there's an email generator. You just kind of run it, and there's 1,000,001 of them out there. So we're just going to take this nice email generator. And the reason why we do this and we're not handcrafting it is because this email is going to be responsive. It's going to be optimized to work in multiple clients, which is a hard thing to do. And it's going to guide you through, like if you need to include images and things like that, to make sure you're including images that are going to be accessible to everyone else out in the world, because that's one of the requirements, especially when you're embedding images. And it's going to tag things so where the spam and email blockers and stuff like that won't kind of spit up and block certain messages. So the way that you see it here, I would say 90% of the time, that's how your end consumer is going to see it, regardless if they're consuming email via mobile device, different browser, different client, wherever, all those other scenarios that you have to take into account, this email generator is going to handle that. So here we ran this through an email generator. We have that nice layout. And from there, we get a index.html file. What I want to do is go ahead and pop this open and let's say studio. And once I have that, this is already primed and ready to go because I've touched this already. And as you can see, like you see how they do the font faces. If you just scan through this real quickly, how they're doing the styling, there's no such thing as importing a CSS file. You have to do everything explicitly within your HTML markup. These are very tedious to create. That's why you use an email generator to create them. All right. So here, once we have that, I just went into there and I just grabbed that HTML. And here I'm going to just dump that into a variable. So I'm going to just go back into Power Automate, initialize a variable. Let's just call this our var email body. Right? And this is going to be a string type. And we just want to paste that message in there. Oops, I think I pasted it twice. Yep, I did. Hold on, let's start over. Single paste. It took a while. It hesitated. I wasn't patient, and I ended up sending it twice. And this is a long, nasty thing, right? Now, the beautiful thing is, and we dealt with this before, this is just a variable with a string text, right? Of course, it's going to have our complex email variable, email HTML, right? But if we wanted to come in here and then put in tokens and stuff like that, which we're going to do because we have that personalized message that we have to deal with, we want to embed that right here in the HTML for there. All right. So once we have that, just to kind of keep things nice and neat, we're going to have our message, and then we're going to put our email body. And actually, we're going to move this in a little bit. But for right now, we just want to confirm that this thing so far is working as expected. We have a dynamic email address, we have dynamic message, we have our email template, and then we have a static subject line. All right, so now let's just go ahead and save this. Just make sure we have our framework all wired up. If I go to our library, it's our contracts library, hit the ellipse here, and then go into automate, and then voila, just like that, send contract to customer. It's going to pop open this right panel. If this is my first time touching this flow as the current user within Office 365, I'm going to get these connection confirmations I have to do, and that's fine. All right, so here's the cool thing about this email type input, right? I can actually type in someone local, right? And this is coming from AD, and it's going to allow me to search my Active Directory. So if I wanted to send this as a test to Madison, and I don't know if this is going to allow me to do more than one or not. I haven't tested this, so let's see if it breaks. And here is the sample email for clients. And then we click run. And if I go to my Outlook, if this thing works as expected, there's my email, there's my personalized message, and then as I scroll through, you can see this thing is responsive, it's doing what it needs to do. If I double click this, give it a little bit more real estate, it comes in full. Just very, very nice. Again, email generator is going to save you a ton of time and account for so many different scenarios. Just like that, and as soon as in a matter of seconds, we're ready to rock and roll. Now let's do a little bit more heavy lifting. So I have my email template. I have my email all wired up, ready to go. That so far is looking good. Now what we want to do is get a handle on the current file, the file that's selected. So what we want to do, we want to use our action that says get file properties. There is a special metadata that we need off of this. And here we just go ahead and go to the contract site, go to our document library, and then no, I don't want files, that's plural. I want a single file. I want the selected file. All right, so let's go. I always get tripped up on that one. Watch your S's. All right, get file content. I'm going to get file properties. All right, so once I get the file properties, there's contracts here, the library, and then the ID. This is going to, so for the selected file, I'm going to get an ID, unique ID for the handle, and that's going to bring in all of the file properties. Once I have that, just very similar, if you haven't seen this in our Power Automate series on converting documents to PDF, you want to go check that out. And because of that, what we want to do, we actually want to create a file. I think I'm missing one, but let's see. I think I'm missing it. I think I need to do one more action before I do this. But we're going to create a file, and we want to create it in OneDrive, right? And we talked about, if pay attention to your connectors, because the account that you specify on your connector, that's the OneDrive that it's going to use to run this whole process. So you can have 10,000 people use it. It's only going to use one OneDrive, and which OneDrive it's going to use is going to be this Clardo user here, okay? So that will be like a service account, whatever the case may be. But keep in mind, if it's a service account, make sure you're licensed, because you actually do need a OneDrive for that service account. All right, so here, the folder path, where we want to create this. So I'm going to create this folder. Let's just call it lease contracts. And then we have that going there. And then for the file name, let's just use the contract name that we have for the selected file. So let me just search on file name. It's going to be this guy here for this selected file. And I assume that's going to come with the extension. And then the file content, that's going to be, and this is where I think I'm missing a action. Yep. So here, in order to get the file content, I only have the properties here. So if I want to get the actual content, I'm going to have to add an action and then do a get file again, singular. And instead of properties only, I do want the actual content. So I need to do file content for that. All right, so let's go through the same process again, send our contract. Here, it just needs to, and this is interesting, right? It just needs to know the site. I don't even have to specify the library, but notice when I go get the ID, I'm a filter on ID, right? And I don't want this ID because I have to be in the library for it to make heads or tails on it. Because this is like a 1, 2, 3, 4, that the single incremental number. This is like a GUID, right? This is going to be unique to that site. That site. I don't know if it's site collection, but that site. So let's just go ahead and select that guy because that's what it's expecting. Once I have that, now when I go to file content, I can say file content, which is going to come off of that new action that we just grabbed. Again, that's a little bit of review. If I'm glossing over here because this is something we went into really in depth in the previous video. Look at for Deshaun Clark Power Automate Word to PDF. If you search that in YouTube, you should be able to find it. All right, so here we're going to say send the attachment to the client. Okay, before I do that, I just moved that to OneDrive. I actually need to convert it. And that's the reason why I moved to OneDrive. So now I just do a search on convert. And here it's going to have my convert action for OneDrive for Business. I want to use that one there. And then again, the unique ID. Again, this is the ID of the file created in OneDrive. And then it's going to ask me which type. PDF is the one that I need. And now I'm ready to send this as an attachment. So for the file name, now this is different. This is the file name that's going to be exposed to the client. So I want to get a little crafty here. And I want to do something like Tesla lease, right? And then I don't know the client's name. Yeah, let's just do .pdf here. And that's the one thing about these attachment names. You have to include the extension. And then for the content of that file, it's going to be the one that gets converted. So I'm going to use that file conversion. And I think we are good to go. So let's just save this. Now I sent myself a test email just to kind of test the HTML piece of it. So what I want to do, I'm going to test, and I'm going to use that same those same parameters of that test email, and now send it with a PDF version. Oh, Azure Resource Manager failed. Share OneDrive for Business and AM token header. Okay, I don't have any clue of what that means. Is it spinning up on this? I don't know. Request to Azure Resource file name. Cannot find any valid connection for connection reference shared OneDrive for Business and token header. Let's just save that. Maybe it's confused, or I clicked something before I had a chance to execute. Nope, it's not confused. It's crying about something. Okay, what is this? What did I do wrong? Create file name here. Oh, so I'm not 100% if this file name includes the extension. So let's be explicit with this. So let's just do file name and just file name with extension. And this is, again, if the selected file is a Word document, it's going to bring that over as a Word. Now, it may be, I only tested this with Word, but if I'm looking at this correctly, I'm going to just duplicate the file, right? I'm creating a file with the same parameters, the file name and the content of the source file, or AKA the selected file. I think that can be any file type. Now, for this action, I'm not too concerned with that, but converting it to PDF, I never tried converting like an Excel to PDF or PowerPoint to PDF or any other non-Office documents to PDF. So let's just see what happens here. All right, so here I'm going to save it. And now test. And let's see if this expands. That message was, oh, it still doesn't like it. Invoke connection failed message. Cannot find a valid connection reference shared OneDrive business and AM token header. I'm at a lost here. All right, let's do this. Let's save this and refresh. Let's do a reload. I have no idea why this is failing. Oh, no, you didn't. Did you for real just like kill my entire flow? Oh, I was about to say. Yeah, that would have been bad business. Bad business for real. All right, so okay, let's backtrack here. Well, let me just see if this still has an issue. Well, let me do this. Let me send a new request because sometimes this test method, because based on the parameters of the previous test, it may not have everything that's needed. So let me just go to the library. And that error could be something silly like that, right? Or you can be banging your head up against the wall and be like, oh, you're testing with a parameter that because you added that OneDrive action, it didn't understand it. So now it's all confused. So let's just do this. Let's test it from the top without using our test method. Oh, see this? This is probably why I was failed because I did not approve the connection, and my previous test run did not approve the OneDrive needed connectors. So it probably was spinning it up on that. See, again, is sometimes you just have to take a step back, especially when you have a working copy, right? That always helps. All right, so let's say Deshaun Clark, test, and then run the flow. And let's see how far we get with this one. All right, so now if I go back to this guy, okay, I heard the thing, so let's go straight to the email. So lease agreement, there is an attachment, right? And there's my body email, nice, pretty, and formatted, right? And here's my lease. If I click that out, it is a PDF, and it has the body of the selected file, right? So how cool is that? So now let's do the ultimate test. The ultimate test is, if I go here, let's do Nissan, and my data doesn't make sense, right? These are supposed to be Tesla lease agreements, but I have a ton of files based on other automobiles and models. I don't know why, but this is the sample data that I have. I was using it for something, but I just try to reuse it because it's actually a lot of work to set up these scenarios with fake data and tenants and stuff like that. So let's do this. Let's send an email to james.harden@hairwebs.com. This is an external email. So imagine this is going to be a client's email, and notice that I couldn't resolve it, right, because it's outside of my AD or Azure AD. James, here is the lease contract. Let me know if there are any questions. Again, this personalized email, right? Because I could have just hung up the phone with James and said, "Oh yeah, let me send that to you right away." I come over here, find his contract, and right click here, put the personalized message in, put the email address that I know if I have for him, and we're ready to rock and roll. So now what I do, I'm gonna go switch over to my Gmail account. This is like Google Suite, right? And then here, just like that, nice and beautiful. James, there's my personalized message, and then I hit them with the standard brochure, which is fine. Legal is going to be happy. Marketing is going to be super happy. And then over here is from a functional standpoint, here's my file and convert it over to PDF, right? So okay, so now I say the one thing I do want to do with you, I mean, everything else is like I showed you the fundamentals and the big framework on, if you have these Lego blocks, you have a library, you can convert it to PDF, which is probably ideal, right? Sometimes, unless you're redlining, you don't want to send a contract out in Word or anything like that to where it's editable. You kind of want to lock it down. You also probably want to run this through another process that probably logs your email. So that way, if there's a regulation or a requirement or something like that that says every email you send out to your end client has to be logged in some way, timestamp, you can do that. So another thing that we probably want to do is two things. One, we want to move that customized message instead of being on the outside of the body. We want to embed it here, right? So maybe if we search on like annual Tesla lease, we can add a personalized message behind that. The other thing we want to do, again, from a regulatory standpoint, we probably at the very bottom where it has a copyright, you probably want to have the timestamp of when this email was actually generated and who within the organization generated this email, right? Because again, if you look at this guy here, that is going to be based on your connector. So ideally, that's going to be a service account branded for external emailing and all this other good stuff. But the actual true employee who actually sent that email is going to kind of be masked. But right there in the footer, inconspicuously, we can specify those details. So let's go ahead and add those in really quickly, and then we can wrap up this video. So here, if I go to the email template, and again, this is just a variable with string, a bunch of string, mind you. I just want to search on Tesla lease review. Okay, so this is where I'm at in the template, right? And that's a span tag. What I want to do is wrap this in a div tag, because that's going to, by standard HTML, give me a new line. And then I just want to put in that personalized message token. So if I just search on message, that's my personalized message, and that's going to be wrapped there. And then the other one was in the copyright section. So if I do search on copyright, if I spell it right, this is my footer. Here's my copyright, and then I want to probably send, let's just say username. And again, for the selected item or selected file, the display name of the user that triggered it, that's what I want to capture there, right? And then I probably want to do another pipe. Oops. Now that was scary. When you're dealing with this much HTML, you do not want to fat finger anything, because that can be detrimental to your health, mental health, right? So here, let's just do a space here, put a pipe here, and then let's just do a timestamp. And actually, one of the things that instant flows have, they have a timestamp of when the flow was triggered, and I can capture that, right? And that's going to be right there in the body, and it's going to take on the formatting and all this other good stuff, and we should be ready to rock and roll. Okay, let's test this again. Our test should work now, right? Because we have a previous test that have the authorization of the OneDrive connector, so we should not get that error that we got before. And if we're lucky, we get green check marks all the way up and down the line. And those are green check marks. And then go over here to my G Suite. That's the old email. Let's just see that new one. There's the new email. And if we take a look at this, oh, we forgot to remove this. Okay, so I got to remove that. But the message that I'm looking for is embedded right there in the email, the HTML email, real nice. And then here at the bottom, I got the display name, and I have the timestamp. Now I can go back and format that. We went through formatting dates and all that other stuff in the previous email series. But just like that, it didn't take too long. If the biggest piece was the the HTML email template, right? So that's if you have a generator, that becomes very straightforward. And then you probably want to go in there and craft in your placeholders to where you say, okay, in the flow, I'm going to replace these placeholders with dynamic tokens to make it look very instrumental in that. But as you can see, nice, beautiful email. It's going to work in many different clients, many different devices. And when it comes to email, that's the type of coverage you need, right? Because you never know what the end user is using, especially when you're dealing with a client. A little bit different than sending out approval notifications and stuff like that when we build processes internally. But again, nice branded email with marketing happy, legal happy, has everything that you need to communicate effectively in a regulatory way with your end clients. And we can do that very quickly with the Power Platform. That's it for this email. See you in the comment section. So if there are any questions, and then with that, I'll see you in the next email. Take care.